So let's talk a little bit about some wonky industry stuff, especially since we have Tom here, because who better to talk about industry stuff than Midnight's Edge? Uh, AT&T and Warner Media. I want to talk about this because there was a little revelation that came out that basically instead of selling off Warner Media,
Yeah,
AT&T plans to spin them
spin it
off
off. Yep.
with Discovery. So like Discovery is basically not outright buying them. They're kind of it's kind of weird, but
Yeah,
basically,
and they said this originally, and I think this is how they got through a lot of the stuff through the legal
yeah,
tape.
the antitrust stuff, yeah. So basically, AT&T is going to be spinning off Warner Media as opposed to just dumping it outright, and Discovery is paying 43 billion to kind of like absorb Warner Media, but at the same time not completely own it outright. It's kind of weird, but one of the interesting things about this is that AT&T's move to basically shift this to a spinoff uh, it's kind of pissing off investors because basically it's devaluing the AT&T stock and it's lowering the annual dividend. And so investors are like, dude, what the fuck? What's up? But this kind of comes among the thing that HBO Max has been a
Hmm.
huge boon for Warner Media. Like, they surpassed all their subscriber growth numbers. They're pulling in close to like $2 billion a month or something like that in subscriptions. And once the Discovery merger happens, they're expecting to kind of like really ramp up the content that you can get on HBO Max and a bunch of the other like Discovery streaming services. But there's a little bit confusion now because the merger hasn't gone through, and so Discovery wants to do like upfronts where they announce like all the, like their new stuff, and they're wondering if they should do like a combined thing between Discovery and Time Warner's things, or have HBO Max be its separate upfront with all these other things. But I'm wondering how the spinoff decision is going to change anything about like the merger and how HBO Max, is being presented to the public. Tom, do you know anything about this or like how it might potentially affect HBO Max and their numbers?
I mean, what little I know as far as from you know word coming out from the inside is that people are afraid heads are going to roll. I've heard there's already been some people who lost their jobs or are getting ready to be ousted because basically what they're doing here, and this could I can see uh, where the where there could be some fear because this could be viewed just like what happened when Paramount decided to spin off all that stuff the way they did and split up their properties and everything with CBS and Paramount, and how much that was a idiotic move, but they haven't really succeeded since they've remerged either. As far as Warner goes, they have a problem that they need fixing, and David Zaslav is the guy to fix that. At least right now, they think that's the case, and I think what AT&T is doing is the smart move. They are not a company that is equipped to handle an entertainment entity as big as Warner. They just want the content. They just want to be able to have a streaming service like HBO Max because you know, they're in competition with like Comcast, who has Universal, for instance. So like that's what they're looking at it as, and they're seeing that this is not something that they can handle the same way that they handle business like AT&T. So they brought in David Zaslav of Discovery to come in and try and restructure this whole thing, I think. And we've already seen a few moves. I think we're going to see a lot more in the next few weeks. And I think it's going to be a better deal for Warner because they've been just like a driftless ship for the
Well,
last.
AT&T really kind of mismanaged them,
They did in a way,
uh,
but at the same time, they didn't. It's kind of a.
well, AT&T dumped a bunch of money into them so that they could get programming up and running, but
Yeah,
AT&T also didn't know anything about the movie or TV
that's what I'm
business.
saying. And that's why they're bringing in Zaslav. And I mean, they brought in guys like Kalar and stuff like that. And he did, what he was supposed to do. And the reason that HBO Max is a success is because of all the moves he made during the lockdowns and deciding to make the movies day and date on HBO Max, especially because
And that was
much
a
like
very controversial
it
decision.
was, but it really is the reason why HBO Max is where it's at right now because they did not have any content, right? They were expecting to have 5 spin-offs from Game of Thrones, and none of them were taking off. And the other one that they did finally get going has been delayed so many times. And I had heard that they were already bickering with Martin, the guy who made Game of Thrones,
George R. R. Martin.
George R. R. Martin. Yeah, so like that was a whole big thing going on behind the scenes too, because of how all that stuff went down at the end. Because I guess he had to shoulder a lot of the blame for that shit with Game of the last season of Game of Thrones. And they weren't too happy with how much money they had sunk into these spin-offs and how they were turning out, I guess, because I shot one whole big pilot they spent an ungodly amount of money on that they decided not to go with because it sucked. And then they did decide to go with this other show that I guess is moving along slowly. But that's the thing. Much like Disney, HBO doesn't have any original programming to the extent that it's pushing any new subscribers yet. What they do have, though, over Disney is they had HBO established already. So they have the brand. There's a lot of the programming from HBO that can be adopted into HBO Max, and that will help eventually. And they are going to start getting some of their original programming going here soon. So they are on the right track. And that's where I think Zaslav comes in. Because the thing is with him is Discovery isn't huge, but it's a ton of channels that were, now, like what he was well known for. Zaslav came in and he worked for NBC Universal for a while. And he came in and he took channels like Court TV that were kind of dying off and he changed them. He would completely change their entire network. I mean, he was the guy who made Discovery what it was, and then he turned it into what it is now. Again, when it wasn't doing it, he has no problems with completely flipping the script, right? Like, so this is a guy who's going to come in and really shake things up, which is what Warner needs right now, because they have been a leaderless ship for almost 2 decades, for the better part of at least 2 decades. Toby Emmerich was not the guy to run this company. Ever since he's been the head of the company, it's been like chickens running around with their heads cut off, is what I've been told, and people spending money like crazy. And that's where we had the situation with Justice League and all that stuff go down, because it had more to do with corporate people trying to get their back end bonuses than making products that people actually want, like they used to 20 years ago. Because there was a time where Disney was like losing out to Warner Brothers. Warner's was kicking their ass throughout the 80s and 90s almost, through up until Disney finally got their footing with, Little Mermaid and so on, Beauty and the Beast down the line, because they were the king. They had everything. And that's where this is a great deal for them on HBO Max, is they have the most content. And then going into this next year, they're going to have a lot of new content, and all the new stuff that Disney has put out and forced out so far has not gained them the type of subscribers they're hoping for. Mandalorian has been the only hit they've had, and it hasn't generated squat for them as far as in comparison to how HBO has been able to turn themselves into a bigger platform. And that's where Zaslav comes in, because Discovery was an app that I kept hearing about, but it was never in the conversation with the streaming war stuff. And I wasn't hearing about from guys like you in the industry or in our circles. I was hearing about it all the time from people in my everyday life. And the word that stuck out to me was, "Oh, I love the Discovery app. I have to have it."
Dude, it's got so many great channels on it. It's got
See,
like the Food Network. It's got Investigation Discovery, which is all the
Zaslav
crime
knows
stuff.
how to make you have to have,
Yeah,
not want it, have to have it.
I
And
subscribe
that's
to
what
it
they
through
tried to do with
Amazon.
Disney, and they
Yeah.
screwed it up. And I think HBO Max is gonna benefit from Zaslav making it the one you have to have.
Real quick, we got another $20 super chat from Film School Rookie. Thanks so much, sir. We appreciate your support. He says, I'm trying to secure the rights for Legend by David Gimmel, working with Ordesky on that. Film School Rookie is a movie producer, and he's got a lot of stuff in the pipeline there, and he's working with some big name celebrities in Hollywood to make some movies that you guys have definitely heard about. I wish you the best of luck, Chris, Film School Rookie. I hope you get that stuff going
Yeah,
because I
he's been
would.
reaching out to me, and I gotta get back to him. I've been so behind on everything. I'm sorry, buddy.
Yeah. Let me talk to the other two
Sorry for
Chris's
that
on
long-winded
the
thing there.
panel.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of this? Do you think the spinoff is going to negatively affect the merger? What are your thoughts? Look,
I don't care.
you don't care.
Here's where I'm at with all this kind of stuff. The only reason any of this matters to normal people is whatever happens, if it helps to produce great content, fantastic. If it somehow stifles great content, if it somehow stifles great content, we don't like it, right? So any of the back end, I don't care how many billions of dollars you're making. I don't care how, about your bonuses. I don't care how much money the execs are making. All I care about is if you have a sense of how to make great content. And, like you said about the Zaslav guy, I don't really know anything about that stuff. If he can help produce great content and make me want to watch HBO Max. I mean, Peacemaker's great. I like Peacemaker. I think it's a great show. I didn't really like the first 2 episodes. Everybody else did, and I was like, what are you guys talking about? This is okay. It's not great. But it got better and better, and I'm a fan of the show. And that's just, I mean, at the end of the day, that's the bottom line. You make great content, people are going to watch you, people are going to love what you're doing. I watch Disney for Mandalorian, and now Boba Fett, but only the episodes that Mandalorian's in, and I watch. I watch. I think I have all the streaming services now. I watch something on everything, just about. Well, okay, I don't watch Yellowstone, but my dad does, so I bought that for him. But yeah, it's all about making good content, and I think people are starting to realize that now. And we talk about pushing political messages and how that distorts the success of the content, but it's also politics in Hollywood. Hollywood can get kind of lost in its own games, and they forget that their job is actually just to produce good stories for us to watch. And whatever they can do to make that happen, it's going to make them all more successful. Everybody in Hollywood's going to be happy if they're successful, and they're going to be successful if they make content people want to watch. That's the bottom line. People got to figure that out here.
So, Book, do you care about this merger stuff?
I mean, I would love to say yes and contribute something valuable to the conversation, but I'm going to agree with Mr. Reagan and say no. I am entirely out of my depth. Asking me to comment on this after Tom gives you information would
I know,
be
yeah.
like you
Hard act to
asking
follow.
me to like break down Penn State's recruiting class and then ask him if he thinks Drew Allar is going to unseat Sean Clifford in spring practice. Okay, I am so far out of my depth. The one thing I will say that is an interesting contrast between HBO Max and Disney Plus is I feel like there is absolutely no slop on the HBO brand with a broad swath of consumers. One of the issues why I think maybe the impact of Mandalorian has been somewhat dampened is because the Star Wars brand was treated so recklessly by Disney after the acquisition. I mean, they, to me, just made some mind blowingly idiotic decisions with that IP after investing an astronomical sum of money to own it. And I don't sense any kind of division, again, among probably a wider array of potential consumers around HBO. Like they feel like that's one of the sterling brands in entertainment to me.
No, that was the best thing they did when they decided to call it HBO Max. Because I was like, Peacock, what the hell are you doing? That is the dumbest name ever for a streaming service.
Yep.
It's like, no, HBO Max makes complete sense. It's a play on both the fact that it's HBO and Cinemax, and it's, HBO Max. It's the whole stream, the entire shebang. So, no, they were brilliant with that. The only thing I wish they do is fix their interface.
Oh yeah, their interface is awful.
Yeah.
And in fact, HBO Max was the streaming service that launched without Roku support.
Yeah.
So like the most important couple months of the launch.
And they recently pulled out of Amazon too.
Yeah. So like they got some weird stuff going on over there, but they do have some of the best content out there, which I think is what's carrying them. And the whole day and date thing with like releasing the movies on the streaming service and in addition to the theaters, I think that was like one of the highlights of last year for me, because like I could just sit there on my couch and watch some of these movies I would never go see in the theaters, like Matrix 4. I would have never seen that in the theater. I would have waited for it to come out on video, but I was able to watch it, the minute it came out. Same thing with like Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. So it was nice having that feature, and I kind of wish that they were continuing to do that, but I understand why they're not.
It warms my heart, by the way, to hear you use such dated language come out on video. That's awesome. I'm gonna wait for it to be released on VHS.
Yes. Oh, Betamax, man.
I still call it
All the
home
way.
video. I know, I'm old school.
Yeah.